Friday night for the Cleveland Browns, and of course, rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders could not have gone better. The jokes that everyone was throwing around this team have kind of subsided. I don't know if we're going to start stocking away the money for playoff tickets, but what you saw on offense, defense, and certainly special teams Friday night down in Carolina probably has you feeling pretty good amount stronger that the Cleveland Browns will look a heck of a lot better than they did in 2024. We'll break it all down. Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network begins now. Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network. I am your host, Jeff Lloyd, and we appreciate all of you who come to the OBR.com every day for your favorite Cleveland Browns coverage. We see the spike in the numbers. We appreciate you all for coming out every day. While you're there, I would highly recommend looking into the VIP package. You have the Ask the Insiders forums. You have the Insider forums where you can get some of the top Cleveland Browns info that nobody else has. Now's a really good time to consider looking into that. Might be something in there from our own Lane Adkins. Also, with the announcement from UFC today, after a small time with your OBR VIP access, you get Paramount, which right now probably is going to be a great thing to unbundle with that if you are a UFC fan. We appreciate all of you coming out for the OBR streaming network every night. Browns 3D at 6 o'clock. There's some changes in the lineup that are starting to come. We're excited about all of that, and we'll share those news as they come. You will have, of course, Jacob Roche and Mr. Bill Sparks, all their thoughts from Friday night's game down in Carolina as far as Browns are concerned, following us at 7 o'clock. And for all of us here at the OBR, we cannot thank you guys enough as we have now officially hit 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. So if you're not subscribed there yet, please do us a favor and handle that. And of course, subscribe over on Twitch. There's no other place to start. Shedeur Sanders, Friday night in Carolina. In the pregame show that Brad and I did, we kind of mentioned, that Shedeur playing well should have been the expectation. And Shedeur kind of got right to business in the first quarter. Obviously, the success came in the second, of course. There was something that I noticed very early in the first quarter. Undrafted free agent wide receiver Caden Davis, after the play was called and the huddle broke, Davis came right over and got right in Shedeur's ear. So maybe Davis had a question as to where he was supposed to line up, or had a question about his route. Shedeur handled it. Caden Davis got on out. Play got off without a hitch, no delay of game. You saw Shedeur has the command of the huddle and certainly has the respect of his offense. There was, the scramble on 3rd and 9 where Shedeur picked up 10. That drive ultimately fizzled out with a 4th and 1. And I didn't like the play call. I'm not going to lie to you. You went spread, 4th and 1. Things were going well. And then you saw a little bit of, what the concerns were with Shedeur Sanders coming out of Colorado. Look, Shedeur Sanders, I have zero doubts about his ability to throw the football. The kid can spin it. He can hit targets high, low. He can do all that. He's just not an upper echelon athlete. I don't think at the end of the day that matters, but putting him in situations where you're going to rely on his athleticism is not probably the best thing for him, because I think sometimes Shedeur believes his athleticism is better than it is. And if his athleticism certainly was a problem at times in college, there's no way that's just going to dissipate now that he's in the NFL. Can he run in a straight line? Yeah, we saw that, certainly. And that's more than okay. And that's sufficient. He's just going to have a quicker, basically exit alarm within his own head of, I get out of here, I get what I can, or if I'm rolling out and it's not there, I just got to basically throw the ball to my family. Shador will overcome that. He will figure all that out. The more live reps he sees, game reps, preseason game reps, the more, I think that will become cemented into his, DNA within his brain, of course, that's just not his best attribute. There are a couple of throws that you just can't get around. One was early. It was a 19-yard dig route to Gage Lavardane. And the thing that made that throw so impressive was there was a lot of trash around Shedor's feet. And so Shedeur 100% couldn't basically just step into it and gun it. And sometimes on a pass like that, where you got traffic around your feet and you kind of short arming it, or, you're not getting your full, you know, weight transfer with your legs, sometimes the ball comes off a little flat and sometimes it ends up maybe in the hand of the defender. Lavardane made a great job adjusting on the route to get inside the defender, caught the ball 19 yards, kept the drive moving. Next throw, of course, is the first touchdown to Caden Davis. A little rollout to the left, and it was a good opportunity the way the play worked for Shedeur because he was able to set his feet. He didn't necessarily have to roll left, throw left, which just necessarily isn't that easy for right-handed quarterbacks. But he was able to plant. And on my first glance, I kind of thought the two receivers in the area were too close to each other. Looking at it on the all-22, it actually was a pretty good play by the underneath corner who kind of just bailed on his guy to tighten up the throwing window on Caden Davis. It was the underneath guy, and of course, the one receiver was in trail coverage. Shedeur got it over the underneath guy and got it outside enough where the trail coverage guy never had the opportunity to get a play on the ball. It was perfectly placed. An absolute, just threaded. It was a beautiful, beautiful ball by Shedeur. Another one, of course, the second touchdown to Caden Davis. And there's a couple things with that throw that really, really impressed me. Steelers had a linebacker blitz coming. The Carolina Panthers had a linebacker blitz coming on the play. I don't know why I'm obsessed with Pittsburgh right now. Maybe it's because the Pittsburgh Steelers are always obsessed with the Browns. But understanding the protection, running back Amani Marshall probably would have been late getting to the block if Shedeur had stayed dead center within the pocket. Shedeur, understanding that the blitz was coming, a little slide step or two to the right, allowed Amani Marshall time to get there, get that block, and Shedeur fires another dig to Caden Davis. Caden Davis had his man beat. What made the throw impressive was another ball placement throw. Just went low. The guy was basically on the back shoulder of Caden Davis. There was nothing he was getting too low and in. That's where Shedeur put it. Caden Davis slid. Touchdown again for Caden Davis. Then there was one in the first quarter. Shedeur was rolling left again. It wasn't immediate pressure in his face, but there was a defender close to him. And Shedeur kind of had a little finesse and touch over the defender. The receiver kind of just stood in one spot, which certainly didn't help Shedeur. Shedeur probably threw the ball where it needed to be, but the ball ended up being an overthrow. Shedeur came back later in a similar type of scenario, this time rolling to the right. And at this point, the play had kind of gone to scramble drill. And, Luke Floria basically took off to the flag. And Shedeur manipulated defenders. Now, this one feathered perfectly over. We all saw the Floria one-handed catch. Those were the ones where you saw it and said, okay, we know Shedeur can throw the ball. The other concerns, breaking the huddle, getting everybody lined up, being able to read coverage, read blitzes. These are all things that we know Shedeur can do. And as to why the Browns were slowing maybe a little bit the development path of Shedeur Sanders, I don't know if anybody truly has the answer for that, but you can't fault them because with the success Shedeur had Friday night, obviously whatever plan in place the Browns have had for him is working. So you just kind of let it go. Shedeur has 100% shown he deserves a bigger load. There's no question about it. He absolutely deserves the opportunity for more. In today's practice, Dylan Gabriel returned. Kenny Pickett still remained basically in rehab mode. And that's what I want to explain to some people. You can do 7-on-7s while you are not 100%. You can't do 11 on 11. You just can't. The pace of it, certainly the fact that you have to take your whole drop, all that, you're just not going to be able to do that. So 7-on-7 is a perfect, drill to be rehabbing back from a hamstring injury, which, Kenny Pickett is. All the quarterbacks look good today. They all look strong today. So Joe Flacco saw all the number one reps. And, I don't want to hear it anymore if you're still thinking that there's some sort of Kenny Pickett fascination here. I just don't see it. This team, in my opinion, is 100% going to start Joe Flacco. And, where it goes from there is where it goes from there, obviously. As far as, Sanders and Gabriel, Sanders got more opportunities than normal, or should I say than he had been getting with the 2s and the 3s. I would say it was almost a 50-50 split between he and Dylan Gabriel. And for anybody that wants, Sanders to get a bigger load, I don't think that the Browns are going to do that just yet because the Browns want to give Dylan Gabriel every opportunity here as well. Certainly a difficult spot where Shedeur looked really good Friday night, and unfortunately Dylan Gabriel is a spectator. But it doesn't mean the Browns aren't going to just, halt, the growth and maturation process of Dylan Gabriel. The Browns fans wanted Shedeur Sanders to get the opportunity to get more. Well, whether the Browns wanted to or were ready to, I don't think that's even an issue anymore. Shedeur Sanders basically called the Cleveland Browns, basically called it out and said, that's it. You just can't ignore me anymore. And in an ideal world, I think probably what the Browns were hoping for. And so with that opportunity, playing well into the fourth quarter, Shedeur Sanders, basically just gave the Browns no choice but to give a lot more consideration to where Shedeur Sanders stands within that room. I told you guys, it was really feeling to me the way this was all working out between Dylan Gabriel and Kenny Pickett missing time, that Shedeur Sanders was basically backing into, maybe not loudly, but quietly, backing into most likely the number 2 quarterback job. And after what he did Friday night, I think it just confirms my thought where the way this is all going to shake out is Joe's going to be your starter. And whenever it comes a time where they decide they're going to go maybe a different way, that's when it'll be Shedeur Sanders' time. As far as other guys from Friday night, I guess we'll start obviously with the draft class. For me, Mason Graham, and he spoke today about where he's at, with his body, and Mason Graham is trying to, shed some good weight, get himself a little bit stronger, get himself a little bit quicker, right around 290-ish. You saw the penetration. You saw it certainly with Mason Graham. Here the Carolina Panthers, this is a guy taking his first reps in NFL preseason games. The Carolina Panthers had 2 blockers on him. So obviously the respect for Mason Graham is there from day one. Didn't really blow up the stat sheet. And you certainly got to be careful with reps, for me with Mason Graham right now. I mean, you see the attrition of guys that are just leaving teams right now with, serious injuries or even season-long injuries already at this point. But you get a quick glimpse, certainly. And you keep in mind that first drive, the Cleveland Browns defense was on the field. They didn't have Mason Graham out there. Mike Hall wasn't out there. But they basically had put Carolina in a 3-and-out, which ended, of course, with an Alex Wright sack. For all we saw before Friday night's game from the defensive side of the ball, an absolute standout to this point had been number 49, Carson Schlesinger. Wherever the play was, wherever the ball was, you couldn't ignore it. 49 was there every time. I think it was 13 reps, 6 total tackles, 4 solo tackles. Do the math, which puts you somewhere, 50 to 60 reps on defense per game as a defense. And you're talking about a guy, there's zero doubt in my mind that Carson Schlesinger will lead this team in tackles this year. There is zero doubt in my mind that Carson Schlesinger will probably total somewhere between 110 to maybe 130 tackles overall this year. He's got the athletic ability. He's got the size. He's got the strength. And it's very, very easy to see. He's got a very intelligent read and react. He diagnoses well. He's obviously a guy who's in his playbook. He's obviously a guy who's on the film. The Browns didn't maybe necessarily want to draft a linebacker in 2025. They basically maybe were forced to by the injury with JOK. But the Browns may have just had a change in their draft theory or process for 2025 that maybe came halfway through or closer to the draft actually coming through. But Carson Schlesinger should be the man at the mic for the Cleveland Browns for the next decade. Harold Fannin, Dylan Sampson obviously didn't get much run. And certainly it's not a knock on either guy. I think it's just that both guys are entrenched into what their roles are going to be. That, they were out there as basically pseudo starters. But the Browns were not going to, start taking rookies and take them away from some preseason snaps that they certainly needed. So small sample size, certainly for Fannin, and a small sample size for Dylan Sampson, of course. As we know, Dylan Gabriel, unfortunately, was unable, to participate Friday evening down in Carolina. And I'm sure he is chomping at the bit right now to get back into action. Some guys that I think we saw Friday night that maybe now all of a sudden we need to see a little bit more of. And, kind of maybe just take this position by position. I mentioned Amani Marshall and his key blitz pickup block on the second touchdown pass from Shedeur Sanders to Caden Davis. But watching Amani Marshall run within the Cleveland Browns running system, and yes, the Browns were spoiled for a long time under the Kevin Stefanski regime, where you had, a really, really accomplished athlete with great strength and great vision in Nick Chubb. But watching a guy like Amani Marshall, who was undrafted free agent Friday night, you kind of realized the friendliness of Kevin Stefanski's run game. Most of it was to the left, and you kind of just saw Amani Marshall run to the spot. And basically it was, do I cut in off of this lineman in front of me, or do I cut outside of this block from this guard in front of me? And Marshall, to his credit, pretty much made the correct read every single time. I don't necessarily know where this running back room is going to be in a couple of weeks. And again, you might want to get over to the OBR.com. You might want to get the VIP package, and you might want to scroll through Ask the Insiders. Just a tip, wink, wink. But so there is obviously an opportunity. We know Jerome Ford is going to be here. We certainly know Dylan Sampson is going to be here. How the rest of that room shakes out certainly is a little bit cloudy. The undrafted free agent wide receivers. And look, I think there's a lot of positives you can talk about with all three of these guys, but we'll start first, unfortunately, with Luke Floria. The 30-yard reception, one-handed, beautiful play, touch pass. Unfortunately, did some damage to Luke Floria and his hamstring. The way Floria was initially reacting, my thought, and maybe probably even more than my thought, my hope, was that maybe it was some sort of cramp. And because you saw Floria just trying to get stretched out, and never made it back to the field, obviously. And then we get word here today, Monday morning, that they're clarifying the hamstring as serious. So much so that the Browns are waiving him with an injury designation. The belief, and I did get this from a Brown source, is that all intentions are to get Floria back under Cleveland Browns control, and hopefully get him stashed away to the practice squad. The Browns are extremely happy with Luke Floria to this point. But the problem is the Browns have 3, counting Floria, undrafted free agent wide receivers who are all to this point kind of doing some nice things, but they don't necessarily have room for all 3 on the 53-man roster. Caden Davis, the 2 touchdowns, obviously speak for themselves. 3 receptions overall for Caden Davis. But the one for me that keeps just kind of catching my eye between Floria, and Caden Davis is Gage Lavardane. Gage Lavardane played at 3 different colleges, finished up his career at South Carolina. A little under 5'9", doesn't weigh a ton, runs 4.40, has 39-inch vertical jump. And when you're an undrafted free agent, you got to be able to make some noise to find a way to a 53. But you also got to be able to find a way to be versatile. And it can't just be one thing. So you saw, and I talked about the 19-yard dig route. That was a great throw by Sanders and a really intelligent play by Lavardane to get himself in front of the defender. You saw Gage Lavardane with a 30-yard punt return that had J.W. Johnson up in the box with the TV crew, basically chanting, rooting for him like it was his own kid. The jet sweep for the touchdown was really, really impressive, and the cutback to find your way to get over the goal line. Normally, with Kevin Stefanski, we kind of have seen those play calls coming from a mile away, and everybody just kind of grabs their hat and goes, "Oh no, this is." But didn't feel that way, like it was obvious. And Lavardane, obviously found a way to get into the end zone. I think the Cleveland Browns are going to add a veteran wide receiver soon, whether it's through trade. Maybe they wait out the next 2 weeks and do it when you're trying to finalize that 53-man roster. So that's obviously, in my opinion, going to, screw up the chances, for more than one undrafted free agent to make this roster. If it's me and, I'm only going to get to keep one, I think that guy right now is obviously Gage Lavardane. Not to discredit what Floria has done to this point, and certainly Caden Davis as well. But I just think the versatility of what Gage Lavardane can bring you is probably something that's going to fit in really nicely, for the Cleveland Browns when they are filling out probably the last spot in that wide receiver room. He's had a great camp, had a great catch today on a contested ball in the end zone against fellow undrafted free agent Donovan McMillan. For me, Gage Lavardane is the guy I am absolutely 110% interested in. I thought all the tight ends played well. I'm not even going to lie to you. I thought they all played pretty well. Certainly an interesting group, and certainly going to be an interesting battle as to how that room finishes out and, becomes complete after David Njoku and, of course, after Harold Fannin Jr. When we get to the defensive side of the ball, and I'll throw a little bone here to my boy Pete Smith, who's been an Aiden Huntington guy the entire time. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's 6'1", maybe 282, and he's basically playing dead center for you on your kickoff team. About 3 tackles, 3 solo tackles. For 281, normally that is not a weight that has you on the kickoff team. He's got a relentless motor. He is more athletic than he is big. It led me to kind of think, in the same sense that I'm talking about Gage Lavardane. And, so if he can cover a kick, he can play some defensive line. Can he be a goal line fullback? Can he be a blocking tight end in short yardage situations? Because again, when you're in the lower part of the roster and maybe the 50, 51, 52, 53rd spot, the more versatility you have, the more you can bring, the more hats you can inevitably wear. Certainly increase your opportunity to A, be active on game day, and B, have a role on game day. Aiden Hunting right now is certainly a guy that, has that Browns coaching room intrigued. No question. You get to the rest of the secondary, and I do want to say I think the defense overall Friday night in Carolina definitely felt a lot more reminiscent of a 2023 Cleveland Browns defense than it certainly did a 2024 Cleveland Browns defense. Just looked and felt faster, hats to the ball, tackled better, all vastly improved. And keep in mind, Carolina did not put up much total yards against this defense in that contest Friday night. The safety room's kind of going to be a battle, and I think maybe it's going to be a little bit of a better battle than maybe some have been anticipated. Christopher Edmonds is, this is his second year here now. He's kind of been a darling in minicamp. He's played a ton of reps because he can play some free. He's, filled in certainly on some reps where Grant Delpit has been out dealing with whatever he's dealing with. It's nothing major. I had mentioned Donovan McMillan as well. You have those guys, along with KZ and, Jenkins, even though he decided he didn't want to have a large role Friday night and kind of got into a little fisticuffs early and got himself ran. So the battle for the Browns within that room at the safety group is all of a sudden starting to look a little better. Cam Thomas. Cam Thomas came over to the Browns late in 2024, former third-round pick of the Arizona Cardinals. Had a pretty monster PFF high score. Looked the part as well, along with McGuire and Wright. Certainly a guy that, has a chance to make some noise here. And all he's got to do is, find a way to get to that 53. Because Jim Schwartz will want the freshest guys out there. So if you're active on game day, you're going to get pass rush reps. That's just the way Jim Schwartz works. So that opportunity certainly can be there for a guy like Cam Thomas. Specials I thought were pretty good, other than the extra point miss by, Dustin Hopkins after the Snoop Huntley touchdown. You got to feel pretty good overall for the Browns and about the Browns after Friday night. And I think everybody kind of tuned in with maybe one eye open, hoping for the best, accepting that there possibly could be the worst. This team certainly has a long way to go. And, whatever the highs were coming out of the Friday night preseason game against Carolina Panthers, it's certainly a whole different ball game this week coming to Philadelphia and a couple of joint practices with the Eagles. And then towing it up with the Philadelphia Eagles on Saturday at 1 o'clock at the Link. Does Shedeur start? Because I would think right now, for where we're at on Monday, it's hard to believe that Kenny Pickett, if he can play, would be in line for that start on Saturday, even though if he needs the opportunity. Or maybe the Browns at this point are just saying, hey, let's get him as healthy as we possibly can so we can pick up that phone and see if we can maybe find another destination for Kenny Pickett to play his football in 2025. So it could be a case Saturday where it's, a good amount of Shedeur, some Dylan Gabriel, maybe Snoop Huntley plays some cleanup. But, the Browns need to keep getting certainly Shedeur the work. He is like a kid with food on his plate to clean his plate. You give him a little bit more. And Shedeur has shown that, he is A, ready for that opportunity, B, deserving of that opportunity, needs to start playing with, and no disrespect to the guys that he's playing with. I don't think they're necessarily on his level. And Shedeur Sanders needs to start playing football with guys that are a little bit more on his level, which would mean the first stringers. However, from Coach Stefanski's words today, I don't know necessarily if those reps are going to be there in the preseason game. Because again, it sounds like, according to Coach Kevin Stefanski, he values the joint practice reps more than the game reps. That'll be Saturday. So maybe that story tells the tale. However, though, we have heard some things before practices that didn't necessarily come to fruition in the practices. So certainly, again, we'll see how all that shakes out. But you got to feel positive, certainly about Shedeur, about all three levels of football. They may not be the most talented group, but after one preseason game, they look like a more unified group and a group that's going to play with a little bit more effort, a little bit more heart, and certainly a lot more intelligence. I'm Jeff Lloyd. We appreciate all of you for the support here at the OBR. Go to the OBR.com daily. The written content is picking up, certainly in the amount that is being put out, of course. So get on over there, check on in for your favorite Cleveland Browns coverage while you're at the OBR.com. Check out the VIP package, the Insiders Forum, the Ask the Insiders. Again, there's something there you might want to look into. I'm not saying, but I'm saying. So the VIP subscription, of course, will get you access to that. After a short amount of time, it will come with Paramount Plus, which looks to be a coup right now. If you saw the news about UFC today, so you can bundle that together for one small fee. You get everything you want Cleveland Browns wise, and certainly get access to a lot of great UFC coverage as well. Again, thank you to all of you for the support here to the OBR streaming network. Officially at 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. When I first, was in talks to, come here, these were goals and goals that we set and wanted to meet. And, I think these goals are getting met at a faster pace, I think, than we all anticipated. So we're all very excited about that. Of course, none of it matters without you guys coming out to listen and watch every day. But the OBR streaming network beginning every night at 6:00, Browns 3D, Jacob Roshaw, Bill Sparks with him for an episode starting at 7. And of course, you'll get all their thoughts, of course, on the Browns 30-10 victory Friday night in Carolina against the Panthers. Make sure you subscribe to the OBR on YouTube. Of course, make sure you subscribe to the OBR over on Twitch. All that being said, this has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. Browns 3D on the OBR streaming network, and we will talk to you all tomorrow.